Hello everybody. I've got John here who is helping me with his camera. He's come down from London to do what we call what I call a re-upload or a second edition. This is in reference to one of the videos that I've done. I think I did it a month ago. It ran for about 46 minutes. My only issue with it, the recording and everything of it was fine. It's just to be able to put the inserts in. By that I mean the covers of the books and photographs I wanted to show, and the map particularly, because as I saw my own video, I couldn't see what it was that the audience could see. So I mean, I could see it clearly as I was making the video, but you, the audience, wouldn't actually see what I could see. So what we're going to do is we're going to film the map and the book covers and any photographs I want to show, and I'll be able to explain a little bit about each caption. So I mentioned this book. This is the Berlin Then and Now book, which is, in my estimation, perhaps one of the greatest books on Berlin I've got in my book collection. The photographs are just outstanding, because we've got Then and Now photographs, and we've got captions, which actually tells a little bit about each location in Berlin as it was at the time. Tony Letizia did an absolute fantastic job with this book, and it's worth every penny of the £30 you'd have to pay for it. The locations are clearly still there, but obviously a lot has changed. This book, I think, was published in the early 90s, so access to a lot of these locations were quite easy because of the fall of the Berlin Wall. But as you know, it's 35 years since the publication of this book, so a lot will have changed. There are images in here that we're actually going to film them, so that and then I will probably narrate over them to actually give a bit of an insight into each photograph, each location that you get to see in Berlin. Okay, when you go to Berlin, wherever you stay, if you stay in a youth hostel or in a hotel, they give away these maps. You see these maps here? These are maps that they give out to all the tourists that stay in Berlin, and this would make an excellent map for those that want to plan out the route of where they want to go before they go there, so they sort of know where they're going, in order for them to sort of save time, because there's nothing worse than you sort of like, you might be in Berlin 4 or 5 days and you lose 2 days because you haven't made a plan. So this is a excellent opportunity where you can actually get a map and map out your route before you go to the various locations. So with this map, there is a shape of a head on the map, and as a result of that, I actually hired a bike and I actually rode round the head, from the neck, the back of the head, to the front of the face. Unfortunately, it doesn't have a nose, and then down the chin and to the neck again. So it really is something like a little kind of souvenir to sort of show where you were, and it's also got the S-Bahn. So you've got the shape of the S-Bahn there, so that you can actually get to the locations. The other thing is that so you can actually ride there if you want. You know, ride a bike. You can actually, because you actually get to see a lot more than if you were on the tube. This Berlin 1933-45, I actually showed this in another one of my videos, but this is a really handy book, because I remember somebody was asking me about Kubelwagen, what a Kubelwagen looks like, and that's a Kubelwagen there. If you can actually see that, that's a Kubelwagen. So that would really be excellent to actually know a little bit about Berlin, where you don't have to read a 500-page book, you know, where you're sort of overwhelmed with so much information. So this sort of is very focused and to the point. So you've got something to actually reference when you're actually in Berlin. Here, for example, you see this the parade there. At this side, you've got the Victory Column. At the top, you've got the Brandenburg Gate, and at the end of the war, there was a lot of planes were taking off and landing on that road. So it's a very pivotal moment, and I believe there's a lot of people that don't actually know. One of the things that was prevalent was the fact that they had a lot of labourers because of bomb craters. So what they would do is they would fill in the bomb craters so that the planes could take off and land. So it's a very interesting and important point of Berlin history just there. The next book I've got here is The Bunker by James P. O'Donnell. Now this is a book that I've shown many times, but it's well worth repeating, simply because the author had access to the bunker. Now he got there after the Russians got there. So the Russians actually liberated the bunker. They got into the bunker first, but James P. O'Donnell actually got into the bunker in, say, like July of 1945. And he had access because the Russians were actually guarding it, so he had to sort of like sweet talk the Russians into letting him into the bunker. But he doesn't know the layout of the bunker, so when he got down into the bunker, it was all dark and dank, and of course it was filling up with water. And I've stressed this so many times, but it's just worth repeating. There's a film made called The Bunker with Anthony Hopkins. In my estimation, it's probably one of the best films on the bunker, and you will actually see those last hectic days of Hitler and his minions in the bunker, and what they were doing and how they lived down there. Because I mean, if you're under the ground for so long, after a while it's going to actually affect your psychology, and I'm sure it affected his. But yeah, James P. O'Donnell, he has one up on Hugh Trevor Roper, who wrote the book Hitler's Last Days in the Bunker, because Trevor Roper had access to those that survived the bunker, but he didn't actually go down into the bunker. But that's why James P. O'Donnell has written an excellent book, because he also had access to a lot of the survivors of the bunker, and a lot of them did survive the war. Here's another one called Die Katakomben, which is the German version of. Now, because this is German, this would take me a hell of a lot longer to actually get through, to actually read this book. But it's a book I'm well worth reading. Not only will it help improve my German, but I'll be able to find a lot more information that perhaps I won't have access to in the other books. And what I would do is I would sort of write things out on index cards. So I would get information from different sources. So I'll get information from this one, I'll get information from the bunker, James P. O'Donnell, the book from the bunker. I'll get Hugh Trevor Roper's book, and there are other sources of information. So I can put like almost step by step. It's almost like retracing the last weeks and days of Hitler and his inner circle in the bunker, where they were, who came in, who left, how long they were in there for, what was the first day they went into the bunker. So it's really involving, but you get an idea and a sense of actually what happened, and it will be clearer and clearer and clearer than if you were to read a book like this and read it through once. Okay, just keeping this is the latest one I've got. I only just got this not long ago. Bau, Nutzung und Überrechte, which I don't even know what it is. Hitler's Ende im Führerbunker. So Hitler's End in the Führerbunker. So you've got a picture of, like, so James P. O'Donnell won't know what that looks like. He will be just going into the bunker, and he'll be just going from room to room to room, but he won't know the significance of each room. He's just going into the bunker, and he sees, oh, you know, oh, there's a chair, there's a table, you know, there's a mess, oh, it's filling up with water, oh, that's the radio operating room and stuff like that. So he won't know the layout of this. But because we've got access to it, and because we know the layout of it now, with other historians actually studying the subject of the bunker, we've got a better understanding of what the bunker actually looks like. So yeah, I'm buying nearly everything that I can to find out a little bit more about the Hitler bunker. This is an interesting book. I don't know if I actually showed it to you. It says Die halbe Stadt, die es nicht mehr gibt. When I was in Berlin, I was going to all the charity shops, and I was asking them about a map. And it's a map where the East Germans had made, where they'd effectively wiped West Germany off the map, so to speak. You know, so I'd always go and ask them. I say, do you have that map? You know, I go in these charity shops. I say, do you have that map where it's like you see East Berlin, but you don't see West Berlin because it's completely blank? And they all knew exactly what I was talking about. And I found this book on Amazon by accident. Yeah, I wasn't even looking for it. I just found it. I thought, oh my God, that's the map that I was looking for. You know, that was what I was wanting. Not only did I buy this book just because of its cover, I actually read the book, every word. And what's unique about this particular book is it's everything. It's about a teenage girl growing up in West Berlin, and it's almost like the antithesis of what Christiane F. should have gone through. Like any teenager, you know, you would go through. Like I've got here's that other book, Autobiography of a Child Prostitute and Heroin Addict, Christiane F. And here's the American version. That's the American version. And I read this and I was thinking, this is what Christiane F. or Christiane Felcherino the life she should have lived as a teenager. And because my German isn't as good, anywhere near as good as my English, you know, there are a lot of words that I didn't know, that I had to sort of skip over. But I actually had an overview and a pretty good idea of the kind of life that she lived. But Berlin was an island. It was an island, and you had here, this side where you can see all in pink, is where the Berlin Wall was. But the rest of Berlin was a barbed wire fence. It was just barbed wire. But clearly the East German authorities did not want to give ideas to their citizens about what was going on in the West, and it's almost like they wanted to give the impression that West Berlin just doesn't exist, even though it does, and that they had no business actually seeing anything about West Berlin. So, die halbe Stadt, die es nicht mehr gibt, which means the side of the city that no longer exists. The next book I've got is by Mark Alton. It's called Die CIA stellt in Berlin die Weichen. Now, in my research about knowing as much as I possibly can about Berlin from between 1914 and 1994, to have a you want to know from as many different points of view as you possibly can find, and the CIA is clearly one of them. And because Berlin was effectively an island in East Germany, so you've got West Germany and East Germany. The smallest version is that there. That's East Germany, and of course that you had an inter-German border. So to get from West Germany and into East Germany, you had to go along a corridor, which is either road, rail or air, where they had to fly within the bounds of this corridor. So if you can imagine how deep Berlin was in relation to East Germany. So it was the ideal place to actually spy on the East German authorities, and the CIA was clearly very good at that, because they actually built a listening post on, I believe it was Teufelberg. Teufelberg means Devil's Mountain. I'm, as I'm telling you this story, I remember my travelling to Berlin with my friend John, and we saw how flat Berlin was. It was as flat as a pancake, you know. I mean, it looked kind of like a pizza, you know, with all the buildings looking out from our park-in hotel room. And but they have an artificial hill as a result of all the rubble after the war. When they cleared all the rubble away, they literally made it an artificial, almost like an artificial mountain. And I think there were 3 of them. One's called Teufelsberg, or Devil's Mountain, and they put like a listening post. The CIA put like a listening post there, so they can actually spy and listen into all the traffic that was going on in eastern Germany. So we know a lot about the CIA and the kind of operations that they do, like, say, for example, the overthrow of the Mossadegh, an overthrow of various governments, you know, especially the Chilean government when Pinochet came into power. So the CIA are used in these operations. Now, I suspect that the CIA helped bring down the Berlin Wall. I actually believe that, because at the end of the war, the wall, beg your pardon, they bought pieces of the wall, and the wall isn't just a wall. The wall's like an L shape. It's shaped like that, like an L, and you've got the part that sticks up, and you've got like a boulder at the top. So when you and it's about 12 feet tall, the wall. So if you try to get over, you can't. There's nothing to grip. So they put these sort of boulder over at the top of the wall like that. Now, why they got the L shape like this is because if a truck tried to hit the wall, it would push the wall over, but the L shape would come out from the ground, and it will get stuck under the wheel, so that the truck couldn't push the wall over like that. I mean, it was clearly well thought out. But the CIA had good reason, I believe, they had good reason of buying pieces of the wall, because it's not for any art. It's for them to actually show all those that visit Langley in Virginia pieces of the wall. So when they go into the headquarters, they have to literally walk past the wall in order to get into the headquarters. So that it's like a sign, it's like a message to let everybody know, look, we helped bring down the Berlin Wall. Now, I haven't read any memoirs of anybody that used to be in the CIA at the time. I really wish that I could. So I don't know anything about the operation. So I'm waiting for somebody that would come out and write a memoir and let us know what actually happened and what was it that they did in order to help bring down the Berlin Wall. But it's well worth seeing. So you can see like sections of the Berlin Wall here, because they were like prefabs, and they would sort of connect all the pieces of the wall together. And the person that actually did this, his son, when the wall came down, his son went over to West Berlin, rang up his father and told him and said, "Dad, I'm in West Berlin, the wall's come down." And he was absolutely shocked, he couldn't believe it. So it's a very, very important observation, is to try and find out as much as I can as what were the CIA actually doing. Clearly they were in Berlin, there's no doubts about it, because it was literally the spy capital of the world. That and Vienna, which is another story. But I'd like to know more, but there isn't enough information out there to sort of know exactly what went on in Berlin at the time. So, documents. When you're buying when I buy stuff, off Amazon or even off eBay or any other source, you try and find things that you can't ordinarily find in, say, Waterstones or foils or anywhere else. Chances of you finding documents in, say, charity shops are almost it's like a needle in a haystack. There's just no chance of you actually finding anything. And I actually remember working in a charity shop in Windsor where somebody actually had a uniform. Now I wasn't sure if it was a West German uniform or an East German uniform, or if it was a border guard uniform. I don't know, but I do remember somebody brought it in. So anyway, I found this. It's like a pamphlet. It's called Violations of Human Rights, Illegal Acts and Incidents at the Sector Border in Berlin since the building of the Berlin Wall on 13th of August 1961, 15th of August 1962. And I think it's got like I can barely see it, but I think it's the 22nd or the November 1963 when it actually had a stamp, and it says, published on the behalf of the government of the Federal Republic of Germany by the Federal Ministry of All German Questions, Bonn and Berlin. Now when I found this, there was no synopsis, there wasn't any description of what it was. I had no clues to what it was until I actually bought it, and I had to. It was effectively a blind buy, and I bought it for like £6. And when I got it, I was like, I hit the bullseye with this one, because of what it has. It's like with a photographs I've never seen before, and areas of Berlin I've never seen before. I thought, oh wow, I've really done well with this one. It's got it's got like a map of the city of Berlin. So there's a map there. It's got the sector and the border crossing points, and it's got pictures of Peter Fechter, and Peter Fechter was like a symbol for all East Germans that were desperate to get to the West. And Peter Fechter tried to get over the Berlin Wall, and sadly he was shot by the border guards, and he slowly bled to death because nobody could get to him. The West German police couldn't get to him, and the East German police were afraid to get to him. And I believe they threw like a first aid kit to try and save his life, but unfortunately he then passed away. And then you can see pictures of border guards actually taking the body away from the scene, because it was so public. That's the thing about it. It was like everybody could see it. You had camera teams there, the press were there. And so it was in all the newspapers. And there's a book that I have that I think I've showed before. There he is. And here's a shot of Peter Fechter, what he looked like there. See? And the photographs, because it was just so open. That a guy 17 actually has to die crossing the border. And we've got photos of the Berlin Wall there. See the photographs where he tried to get across. So it was very, very public, and of course everybody was up in arms. The West Berliners were up in arms, and of course the German state was up in arms. And I think the politicians were always trying to score points, and come up with their speeches saying, "No, we should do something, and we should try and bring down the Berlin Wall," and so on and so forth. And I mean, we see how politicians operate today. Bernauerstrasse, or Bernard Street, is like a famous street in Berlin where a lot of the East Germans were jumping out of the windows, and you can see here where it's they forced all the people that were in those buildings into new homes, and then they would brick up all their windows so nobody would try and escape. Sadly, there was somebody that actually jumped down and laid mattresses on the floor, on the pavement, but as soon as they jumped on the mattress, they died tragically. and then eventually all these buildings were eventually torn down, and now if you go to Bernauer Straße or Bernauer Street, it's just a field. There's just nothing there. It's just a field. Here you'll see a fence. This fence was put up above the wall. So what you would have is, because a lot of families and friends and things like that were waving to the other side, waving with the handkerchiefs, and sometimes they were standing on vans and cars and things so they could get a better view. So what the East German authorities did, they would put up a fence above the wall so that you couldn't see over to the other side. So I've got this on VHS tape, and I was saying to my friend John how we're going to transfer. So when I do my discoveries, when I do my research and stuff, I always have to look for new material. Back in the 80s, before there was an internet, I'd go to the bookshops and I'd have a look at what they've got available. If I look for anything Berlin related, they're mostly tour guides. You might find a book. Obviously, you'll find a book about World War II Berlin, and it will be Hitler related, or you'll just find a chapter in a particular book. But you want the whole book to be about Berlin, and not just buy a book just because it's a chapter. So in those days, what I had to do basically was to ask if I could order any books, but they would only give me a list of Berlin books that there are available, and that's it. No synopsis, no backstory about the author, no reviews. It was just a list, and I had to effectively pick from the list a book that I wanted to order. And of late, it's the same kind of thing. Not all the time, but a lot of the time. And this is the same sort of thing. These documents here. Now, when I saw these documents, all I had was the covers. That was it. There was no synopsis. There were no reviews. There wasn't even any page numbers. All there were these pictures. And I ordered it because I thought, oh, it's going for 15 quid. I thought, 15 quid? Oh, I'll have that for 15 quid. Only to click on it, and then you'd actually see that they wanted £20 postage. And that's when you're sort of thinking twice. You're thinking, well, am I going to have the courage to buy it? So you might put it off for a while to think about it, or you end up buying it. But £15 plus 20 is 35 quid. So eventually I did click on it and I did buy it. And these are the documents here. Zur Situation in der Sowjetzone nach dem 13. August 1961. That means the situation in the Soviet zone after 13th of August 1961. And I've got this other one. It says, Der Flucht aus der Sowjetzone und der Sperrmaßnahmen der kommunistischen Regimes von 13. August 1961 in Berlin. That means the escape from the Soviet zone in the Maßnahmen. I don't know what that means. Das Kommunistischen, which is the communist regime, from the 13th of August 1961 in Berlin. But I've got two of them. They're exactly the same. I mean, it happens quite a bit. I mean, I've got a couple of books here. Look, thinking that I bought a new book, only to realise they're both exactly the same. So you end up getting doubles. I've also got books, one in German, one in English, same author, same book, except I've got them in two different languages. This is what you sort of come across from time to time. Here's another one, Walter Ulbricht. Walter Ulbricht, just a thin little book like that. This cost £9 because for the price that I saw it for, I thought was reasonable, only to find out that they wanted £4 postage. Here's another one, Walter Ulbricht. Look at it. It's almost the size of a matchbox. It's a book, leather-bound book, which I thought I was going to get, and I thought it would be a leather-bound book this size. £22. Here's another. This book is called Germany Between East and West. Somebody's torn out a whole chapter. There was no way of me knowing this until I actually got to read it. So yeah, there is a downside to all this research. What has often been spoken about in reference to, say, the Ukraine war, is the Cuban Missile Crisis. It came up again and again and again. But what people forget is that the Cuban Missile Crisis, as bad as it was, and it was very dangerous, of course it was, but it only lasted 13 days. So it wasn't quite 2 weeks. Whereas the Berlin crisis lasted for 33 months. So it sort of started in 1958 and finished in 62, 1963, depending on whose point of view you choose to believe. John F. Kennedy said he was more worried about Berlin, things kicking off in Berlin, excuse the term, but as opposed to the Cuban Missile Crisis. And he was always in contact with Khrushchev, communicating with Khrushchev, and this is something that the CIA didn't like, because they were tapping his phone calls. So, but for John F. Kennedy, so much of the history of Berlin is intertwined with John F. Kennedy at that time. He played such a pivotal role and gave that great speech, Ich bin ein Berliner speech, that to this day is referenced because of the power of his own, either his speech writing or he himself having written the speech. So it's something that is I wouldn't say it's overlooked by everyone, but it's overlooked by a lot of people. But yeah, so anyway, watch what you buy. That's the lesson that I got from this stuff. Okay, so this one is the Berlin Wall Crisis Perspectives and Cold War Alliances. Now, this is, like I said, I'm not really sort of so much referencing the book, because I haven't read this book, but it is the types of books that I have, which are written by professors, by scholars, by people that perhaps want to write a dissertation in reference to the Berlin Wall, the Berlin Crisis as it once was referenced. And it can be a bit dry. It might be for some people difficult to read. I know the book that I had, Germany Between the East and West, was also, I had to really knuckle down to get through this book because it was so bone dry. But oftentimes a lot of these books that get published are, one, very expensive, and two, are very dry. So you really have to sort of focus and concentrate, be able to read between the lines, be able to read behind the words, and you might even have to read it through several times in order for you to understand or get perspective or get the analysis of what it is that they're saying. But the downside of it is it's dry. This is another book, America and the Shaping of German Society. Now, I was watching a documentary earlier on today, actually, which really sort of heralded the point, is how the capitalistic system was shaped. And this was a form of, they might call it, there is a type of a psychological warfare that is being used either in the perspective of propagandizing the citizens of West Berlin, but also of East Berlin and East Germany because of television. So if you have television, you can actually broadcast into the east, so into East Germany and East Berlin, and a lot of the East Berliners and East Germans would pick up these West German television and having the impression of how free the West is. But really, I think in a lot of ways it's a kind of an illusion. So a lot of the buildings at the time that were being built close to the wall was to give this impression of how things are so much better in West Berlin and how free people are in West Berlin and in West Germany than they are in the East. I mean, there is an oppression. Erich Mielke, who was the head of the Stasi, would use the power that he had. He had incredible power, and the whole country and the city of Berlin were under surveillance, and they had some of the Stasi were actually filming people, as they were wearing their overcoats, with their umbrellas and briefcases, and they had all sorts of techniques of actually how to actually film the citizens. And not only that, they would actually break into people's homes who they suspected were in some way speaking against the regime, be it in music, be it in theatre, be it in plays, be it in books, and be it in teaching. So a lot of people were accused of one thing or another, or it could have been quite innocent in what they did, but because they just wanted to get that person, or they wanted to get rid of him, to say like he's a school teacher or he's a headmaster or something like that, or it could be a colleague that actually spoke to the Stasi because they wanted his position, and in order for them to get rid of him, they would then have an accusation. They would accuse him of doing something that was against the state, and for that person that did the accusation would get the position that they accused. The accuser would get the position of the accused. So it's a very, very, it's very bleak, and it's disturbing regime that East Germany was. But getting back to my point, the capitalistic system is so designed to give the impression that everything is wonderful and nice, and and you've got the supermarkets full of food, and you've got like the Belvedere, which is this famous shopping centre in Berlin, where you can get all sorts of goods from all around the world. Gives this impression that everything is wonderful in the West, and of course the East Germans and the East Berliners would see this on television and think, oh, I want that. And this is, in some ways, I believe, how the state of East Germany was forced on its knees, and eventually it forced open the wall. So America and the shaping of German society, this is from 1945 to 1955. Again, it's one of these books that's sort of written by professors and scholars and that kind of thing. So the language that they use will be that much drier. So, but it is very, very important that one actually reads these books. Otherwise, there will be a part of history that will be overlooked. Okay, that's pretty much, I would say, concludes my my views on the books that I have here. I wanted to re-upload because I know that John is doing a magic with his editing, and he will make my presentation look a lot better than it had been perhaps before. So and I know Stick is forever asking for new material, and I thought I'll take this opportunity to actually do some more filming, and that, I will have to say, concludes my presentation. So Auf Wiedersehen.